5 models any high-performing business person should know about, and this is actually with a guy called Jim Bunch. And I was going through my stuff, my programs I've invested in heavily over the years, and one that came up was a program called the Brainathon by John Assaraf. I'm not too sure exactly if you heard of John, but John is an entrepreneur, businessman, and he loves to study the brain. He's more into the neuroscience, and some of his programs have been absolutely fascinating, more to do about mindset and how to approach your business. So he's had massive success. You can go and Google him if you haven't heard of him before. But he teamed up with many like-minded people in order to create his Brainathon, and one guy in particular is a guy called Jim Bunch, and he has amazing content in a video that I thought I would share with you. So if this is of interest to you, then brilliant. I think it's always good to nourish your brain in any way that you can and keep you motivated, because the entrepreneurial journey can be quite a lonely one sometimes, and if you're not in a support network that serves you well, I think it's always good to invest time listening to people who have got the results that you want, maybe for yourself or in your business or all of areas of your life. So yeah, I think you would really appreciate the training. So more to follow and the training after this.
Hello and thank you. Super excited to connect with everybody for a first time ever event. And when I say a first time ever event, I have never in my 20 years of business and life and personal development teachings taught all of these models. And when John and I were chatting about what would be something that's very new, something very powerful, something that can help people in their life and their business, I had this idea. I go, John, I've been thinking about teaching these models that I've used in my life and business, and of course John's used tons of them too, to help us take very complex ideas and make them very simple. So you've probably heard this before, right? It's been said that a picture is worth what? A picture is worth 1,000 words. And if a picture is worth 1,000 words, I started wondering, then what can a model be worth? Well, these kinds of models that I'm going to introduce you today can literally be worth millions of dollars. And I've used these in life, I've used these in business, I've taught them each individually, but I've never compiled them. Some of them are models that I've created. Most of them are models that I have learned or studied and applied in my life or business. So here's how this is going to go today. Grab a pen and paper, take as many notes as you can. As these models start flying by, and I'm going to go very quickly because I'm not going to be able to take you super deep into these models, but originally I thought, what are the top 5 models? And as I put these top 5 models together, I started taking all these notes, and then, I went, wait, there's another model that I want to teach them, and there's another model, and there's another model. So what ended up happening was I didn't come up with just 5 models I wanted to teach. I actually came up with 22 models that I want to teach you in the next hour. So I think you're going to enjoy this, and I've saved, I think, some of the best for last. So as we go, take notes, get ready to ask questions, and if you want to type some in as we go, that's fine too. I'm happy to engage, but I want to dive into these models and see if we can stimulate your mind about how to create more wealth, how to get in better physical shape, how to simplify your life, how to create more focus, and how to leverage these models to do all those things. So without any further ado or framing up, let's just rock and roll into our first model. And this one's the simplest one. I chose the one that everybody has probably already heard because I wanted you to get familiar. But how many of you have seen this kind of model before, that you've got this thing called the comfort zone? And just outside of that comfort zone is where all the magic happens. It's where entrepreneurs challenge themselves to take their business to the next level. It's where moms and dads, outside of their comfort zone, they decide they're going to have kids, and now they're uncomfortable, but they grow and they expand and evolve. And so you've probably experienced this in your life. When you're operating inside of a comfort zone, everything is the same, right? You're not challenging yourself. You're not encouraging yourself to become someone new and develop new things. So we like to say that Just outside of the comfort zone is where the magic happens. Now, I want to give you one last piece of this before we go to the next model. In my experience, most people who live in a quote-unquote comfort zone are actually not comfortable. They're familiar in an uncomfortable world. What does that mean? It means that they become familiar with their environments, but they're not comfortable. People who live in a comfort zone aren't typically comfortable, right? They're uncomfortable, but they've become familiar. And we'll talk about the power of environments a little bit later on. So that's the model number 22, and we're going to do a countdown backwards, is the comfort zone. Where the magic happens is just outside of that. Now this next one, many of you have probably seen also. It's called the learning pyramid. And I wanted to introduce you to the learning pyramid because so many people, when they're on their path to personal development, don't realize that taking in this information is one thing. In other words, if you look at the top of the pyramid and you simply sit back and you hear a lecture, about 5% of the information that's shared will be retained. So think about that. That means that 95% of what you learn in a lecture format is not retained. So how can you increase that? Well, you can read about it. That bumps it to 10%. If you go down the pyramid a little more, you can add audio visual. That bumps your retention to 20%. If you have a demonstration where I were to show you something, right, that might move it up to 30%. All of that is called traditional or passive learning. And if you look at a lot of the education systems, that's how it's designed, right? And we're doing a little bit of that right now. I'm broadcasting information to you. So you might retain just 30% if you sit back and you listen and you watch. But if you want to retain more in life and in business, then you've got to move beneath this line to where we start getting you actively engaged with the content. So if you have discussion groups, in other words, take this material, these models, and whichever one is your favorite, take a screen capture of it, post it in the Facebook group, and start a conversation about it. You know, get engaged in thinking more about the concept and talking to others, and your retention goes from 30% right up to 50%. That's huge, right? That's a huge return on investment right there of another additional 20%. So post it in a discussion group and start talking about some of these models. If you want to increase it even more, then take these models out and start doing them. Apply them to your life. Apply them to your business. Test the models. That's what I do. Anytime I take in information from my libraries or from seminars or books or tapes, and by the way, I study every single day. It's a passion of mine. It's a passion of John's. It's something we do every day to sharpen the axe and get better and better. All right? So practice it. But the very best retention that you get, 90% retention, is to take this information. Don't just practice it. Don't just discuss it, but actually start teaching it to other people. Just like I'm doing with you here. I have discussed this models with people. I've practiced it in my business, and now I'm actually teaching it for the first time ever. So feel free to take these models and share them with other people. Okay? So this is the learning period. And if you feel like you are, you're outside your comfort zone, you're learning a bunch of new materials, you now have a pathway to accelerate your learning, and that is just by going out and applying it and then teaching it to other people. Okay, so let's go. That was model number 21. Let's go to model 20. Now, this is one that I've been teaching in my community, the Ultimate Game, for years now. And it's called the 4 freedoms. Now, a lot of people talk about financial freedom, which is great. I like to talk about 4 freedoms because if you have financial freedom, but you're tied to your business or you're tied to your job, you're not truly free, right? If you have financial freedom, but mentally and emotionally, you're still in angst or you're stressed or you're worried, you're not free. So what I encourage people to do is look at these 4 freedoms and say, how do I design my life and my business? So instead of doing life by default, I'm doing life by design. How do I design my life so that as I build my company, as I build my relationships, as I build my life, I get more and more free every single day. So time freedom is the ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want. That's time freedom. So if you look at your life right now and you say, you know what? I'm pretty much at choice with where I invest my day. I was talking with a young gentleman by the name of Mark Lack that John Asraf introduced me to the other day. And Mark is in his 20s, and he's got a pretty close to time freedom lifestyle, and he's getting really close to financial freedom because he did that by design. He chose to take on the clients he takes on and the model of the business he has, which gives him more and more freedom. And I'm going to help him create ultimate freedom where he's leveraging other businesses and systems, so he'll be truly time and financially free. Now, the third is location freedom. And what's great about technology today is with simple devices like this or with a laptop, you can literally be anywhere in the world that has internet access, and you can connect to your business, to your communities, to whatever it is that most people do on a day-to-day basis. So if you've got time freedom, financial freedom, and location freedom, you're pretty darn close. And that leads us to the last piece. And I will talk about financial freedom actually before I talk about inner freedom. You see, financial freedom is having the right structure in place and team in place that allows you to focus on your gifts, your dreams, your desire, or your vision and mission of your company. And that financial freedom is fuel to accelerate the growth of that vision and mission that you have. So when you look at financial freedom, it's having your wills in place, it's having your debt structured properly or no debt at all. It's about having the right team in place that allocates the resources. It's about having everything that you need so that you don't have any stress and you have a constant growth in the area of finances. So the last one is inner freedom. And this is one that a lot of people discount. They don't either aren't aware of it or they forget the importance of true freedom being an inner game. And I break this into three categories. When I talk about inner freedom, I talk about emotional freedom, mental freedom, and spiritual freedom. Now, the emotional freedom means that you're not riding the highs and lows every day. You are in control and you're responding to the environments instead of reacting to the environments. That's emotional freedom because stuff's going to come at you, right? You cannot control all the things outside that happen in the world. However, you can control your inner response to the outer reacting world. So that's the emotional freedom. The mental piece is where John has invested a lot of time here at NeuroGym, is helping people to rewire their neuroplasticity so that they don't end up derailing themselves mentally from their goals. They have the ability to stay on track. They're rewiring your subconscious mind. And then spiritual freedom, I think, is involved with your purpose and what I call your inner architecture. So some people believe that having a purpose is what gives them fuel in life. It's what gives them direction. It's what drives them. And there's a lot of people who feel they just don't know their purpose. Maybe they have one, but they don't know it. Well, when you start understanding your strengths, your gifts, your talents, what I call your inner architecture, what you were perfectly designed to be. Because think about this. The universe doesn't make mistakes, right? The universe would not have created you with some kind of imperfection. There's no way. Look at the fact of how this universe operates. The fact that we as a species can breathe on a rock that's spinning at 28,000 miles an hour and being hurled through space, and somehow we've still stayed connected together. The universe doesn't make mistakes. You couldn't have been a mistake. So the universe must have designed you exactly the way that was necessary for you to be able to breathe, to think, to move, for every cell in your body to do what it's supposed to do. Now, sometimes those things break down, right? But the universe is perfect in designing you. And it all starts with your DNA, dinucleic acid. It's information in order. So as you express your DNA, as you express your gifts, your talents, your strengths, your abilities, that is who you are, and that is part of your path to spiritual freedom. What I have found is when people are on path, in other words, they are tuned into their vision, their mission, their purpose in life, not everybody else's, not the government's, not your friends, not your coworkers' vision and mission for your life, but for your vision and mission in life, now you start to experience spiritual freedom. So when you combine those three together, spiritual, mental, and emotional, now you start to experience the fourth freedom called inner freedom. So I just want to pause for a moment and check in and see how we're doing on the first few models here. I want to just get some feedback and make sure you're following. How's the pace? Are you taking this information in? Do you want me to speed up or slow down? So if I can get a little bit of feedback as we're going here, because it's not important that I get this. I want to make sure that every one of you gets this information. So give me a little feedback there, and that will help me. Okay? And I don't know if that's being typed in by the moderators or whether I'm doing that, but somebody give me a quick little heads up in the chat box so I can see what's going on. All right, well, I'm not seeing anything, so we're just going to keep rocking and rolling. I'll assume that everything is good. All right, that was model number 20. Let's drop down to model number 19. Now, this is one of the models that I created after looking at tens of thousands of people. So let's see, can you work on all four freedoms at one time? Yes, you can actually work. So I'll go back here. So you had a good question that came up. Can you work on all four freedoms at one time? Absolutely. As a matter of fact, if you're not working on all four freedoms at one time, you're probably setting yourself up for more stress and challenges in the future. So I would highly recommend that you build a life and or a business if you're mode to financial freedom, and I'm going to talk about the pathways to freedom later. But if you're to financial freedom, but if you are building a model that's allowing you to have one but not the other, well, then you've created something called the competing commitment. And I've seen this happen in lots of people's lives and business. They become really good at one area. In other words, they get a lot of time freedom, but they've messed up the financial freedom side, right? Or they start getting financial freedom, but they've locked themselves into an office and they don't have location freedom. So a lot of people think, well, if I just get financial freedom, then I can have the other ones. Guess what? That's not always the way that it works out. Okay, so and most of the people in here have seen this happen in other people's lives or your own life, where you start getting close to one, but you're getting further away from the other. Okay, so this is what we call doing life by design instead of life by default. Think about it being an architect. Right? If you're an architect of a building, let's say a skyscraper, and you said, hey, I'm going to build the most beautiful skyscraper out there. And I'm going to design it so that we've got great lighting for everybody and that everybody has super high performance. But we forgot to put in the air system, the airflow system. Okay. What do you mean? You forgot oxygen was necessary and getting rid of CO2 and all the toxic? So this is kind of like people in their business, in their lives. And they go, oh yeah, I'm getting financial freedom, but I'm working harder than I ever have before, and there's no way out. Right? Or I'm always going to be trapped in this office because of the way I've designed my life or business. Or, yeah, I'm getting more money and I've got the ability to travel, but I can't quit thinking about my business because my mind is always on. All right? So the answer is yes, and that's a bit of an explanation. All right, let's move to model number 19, and it's called the 3 C's of money. Now, you're going to notice all 3 of these C's have one word in common. What's that one word? Right? There's cash flow creation, cash flow management, and cash flow investing. Well, the one thing they all have in common is cash flow. Because in life and business, cash flow to your personal finances and cash flow to your business is like oxygen to the body. What happens the moment you quit taking oxygen in with the body? You get stressed out, you start worrying, you get hyper-focused, and that's the only thing that's important, right? Well, guess what? In your personal finances, in your business, what happens when cash flow dries up? Don't you start to panic a little bit? Don't you start to get stressed? Don't you start to get really focused on cash flow? Yeah, and the more cash flow that comes in, people have a tendency to relax a little bit, right? So I looked at this and I said, there's really 3 things that we need to teach people around the world how to create wealth. Number 1, you've got to understand cash flow creation. So how is it that you currently create cash? So, and we'll talk about this in a moment. As a matter of fact, Robert Kiyosaki is one of the models I'm going to share with you later. And he was one of the first ones that broke down cash flow creation for me in a really simple way to understand it. But one of the ways is obviously getting a job. Another way is starting up a business, okay? So I'll give you more detail on one of the other models coming up, but you've got to have a way to create cash, whether it's coming from a trust or a portfolio or a job or a business. There's got to be a way for cash to come in. So you're exchanging something, typically your time or a service or other people's times, to create cash, right? The next piece is, from cash flow creation, is cash flow management. Now ask yourself this question. Which do you think is more important? Your ability to create cash or your ability to manage cash? Think about this. Which is most important? Here's what I can tell you, because in some of our programs, we actually track people's financial success, because part of my goal is to help people become financially free in 3 years or less, which means that your passive income is exceeding your monthly expense. Here's what I found. No matter how much money someone makes in the cash flow creation section, if they do not understand and are not diligent about cash flow management, they will not get to step number 3, which is cash flow investing. So how many times have you met people or known somebody, maybe personally, who's really good at creating cash, right? They can just generate cash out of thin air, but they don't manage it well. In other words, they blow it all, or they just don't pay attention to it for long periods of time. And next thing you know, they don't have anything left. Here's what I've noticed. The people in our programs who have done the best, the ones who have gotten out of the rat race the fastest, are the ones who've not only been able to create some form of cash, and it didn't matter if it was $30,000 a year or $300,000 or $3 million a year. If they could manage it properly and take a chunk of that and invest it for cash flow, then guess what? They won time and time and time again. But those who are good at creating cash flow but not good at managing and then finding a place to invest it typically didn't win. So the third C is cash flow investing. And a lot of people don't think like this. A lot of people think that I'm investing for net worth, which is okay. But let me ask you this question. Do you have expenses in your life and or business every month? You do, right? You probably have technology fees. You probably have food, right? You have transportation. You have housing or office space. You have expenses that are going out every month. So the idea here is to set up these systems for the creation and the investing that's always spinning off more and more cash. Okay? Some of the wealthiest people that I know who have what we will call family generational wealth are constantly looking for ways to generate not just equity, but how do they create more and more cash? Because the more cash flow you have, the more opportunity you have. Right? Now, I want to give you one little piece, and this wasn't in my slides, but just a concept around money since we're in here. I want you to imagine that every dollar bill, or whatever your currency is in your country, imagine that every dollar bill is 1 unit of energy. Now think about this for a moment. For you to generate a dollar, you probably had to have something in place that generated a product or a service or something of value for somebody else. So if you have a business, let's say that you're a coach, or let's say that you run a website company, or let's say that you do pest control, whatever it is, and you provide a service to me, I'm going to give you $1. That dollar is stored energy. In other words, I had to do something through my businesses to create value to get that dollar from somebody else. That dollar is sitting there as stored energy, right? So if I pay you 10 units of energy, or 100 units of energy, or 100,000 units of energy, I'm taking my stored energy in a dollar bill, I'm giving it to you, you now have that stored energy for what you did for me. This is an important concept, because as the money moves faster, from the creation to the management to the investing, the faster it moves around this circle, because your cash flow investing will create more money, right, for you to manage to invest. The faster it moves, it's called the speed of money, the more wealth is created. This doesn't just work on a small level, this works on a macro level, and let me explain. What is a recession? A recession doesn't mean there's less dollars out there. What a recession means is the money isn't moving from hands to hands. It's slowed down. It's recessed. Not the amount. There's the same amount of money. As a matter of fact, they're printing more money now than they ever have, which is screwing up the inflation side. It means money isn't moving. People are holding on to it. What is a depression? It's slowed down even more, almost to a crawl. So everybody's holding on to what they have. It is actually a fear-based response. So if you look in your own life and ask yourself this, are you in the flow or stopping the flow of money in your life? Are you trying to create it and then hold on to it? Or are you trying to create it, manage it, invest it so that it moves faster? Something for us to think about. And again, I'm going a little deeper in this model because I know a lot of people are curious about money and wealth and how to create it. And I want you to shift your mindset to understand that every dollar is a unit of energy and that you should keep that unit of energy employed at all times. And the faster you do that, the easier it is to create wealth. Okay? Now, let me talk a little bit about this next model, which is called the 4 pathways to wealth. Because some of you are going, well, that's great, Jim. So I get the 3 C's, but how do I create wealth? How do I create cash flow? Well, there's four primary ways, okay? Now, the first is called portfolio. Portfolio income is from investments you've made. So if you have stocks, for example, and they're spinning off cash flow, that would give you portfolio income, or it's going to give you growth. And that's pretty standard. A lot of people have them in 401ks or IRAs or mutual funds, bonds, things like that. That's what we'll call portfolio income. And that has been heavily marketed, especially here in the United States, as a way to wealth. And the concept is, hey, if you've got $1 million, it's producing 8% a year, you're going to have $80,000 a year spinning off of your $1 million. Okay, that's one way to look at it, right? So that's one way to create portfolio wealth. Another way is through affiliate or MLM, direct sales, something like that. Now, the reason I put this as a second way is because when you're doing affiliate marketing or multi-level marketing or direct sales, you are in business, right? You're a 1099, but you're not responsible for the whole business. If you go to the next category where it talks about business, right? Business, when you're in that pathway to wealth, you are the person who came up with the idea or somebody else did, and you are building sales, marketing, finance, operations, legal, HR, technology. You are responsible for putting all the pieces together. When you're an affiliate or MLM or direct sales, you are actually leveraging somebody else's business in order to create cash flow. And I think it's one of the best ways for people who have never successfully built a business from scratch to actually monetize somebody else's business, because now they're connecting an audience with a product or service. So I hope that makes sense. And the reason I separated affiliate and MLM and direct sales from business, because if you're in the business game, you've come up with an idea for a product or a service, you've built a team, maybe you've raised capital, whether it's through sales or whether through investment, you've had to put the infrastructure in place operationally, financially, legally, sales, marketing, technology, all of these pieces, and you run that machine. So business is another pathway to wealth. And when you look at the actual statistics of how many people are successful in building all of those areas, it's a pretty small percentage, but it can be done. One of the favorite programs John and I actually collaborated on was Cloning of Business Success, because it truly is a model. Business is a model, and they've been proven out for years and years. The question is can you see that model and can you build it with your idea or product or service? Now, the last one is real estate. And real estate can be residential, it can be commercial, it can be all these different ways, but it's typically the fourth pathway that I've noticed that people create wealth. A lot of times, and I want to share a quick little story here with you, a lot of times people will use business to generate portfolio and real estate holdings. So the story I want to share with you is, this was probably about 10 or 15 years ago. I went in to see my bookkeeper, sorry, not my bookkeeper, my CPA. And, we were talking about the books and, our investment strategies and what was going on with the business. How do we minimize tax, all this kind of stuff. And his name was Bruce. And I said, Bruce, let me ask you a question. I go, how many clients do you have right now that are like me, that are business owners? And he said, I only focus on business owners. I've got about 200 business owners. And then I've got a couple of people that are retired. They don't run businesses anymore. They've created mass amounts of wealth. And I said, let me ask you a question. Where did they create all their wealth? And where do they store all their wealth? And he goes, well, as I mentioned, all of mine are business owners, right? And where they store their wealth is either in their business, somebody else's business, or in real estate. And I said, how many of them have stocks and portfolios? He goes, a little bit, but that's not really where they store their wealth. He goes, the wealthiest people I know stored in real estate and in businesses. And a lot of times it's the businesses that generate the wealth for the real estate. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting distinction. I said, what is your strategy for creating wealth and becoming financially free? He says to me, he goes, well, Jim, my strategy is to actually keep a book of a couple hundred clients and bill as many hours as I can at high rate as I can. I went, what? He goes, yeah, I want to charge my clients as much as I can and bill as many hours as I can so I can take as much money off the table as I can. I don't think he realized what he was saying to me, because it wasn't too long after that I said, I think we need to exit the relationship, because that's not the model that he just got through telling me was creating wealth. And I thought, he's wanting to not feed off of, but feed off of us. I went, okay, this guy's not seeing what's right in front of him, which is how to create actual wealth. Okay? Now, I share that model because this next one is called the cash flow quadrant. And there's a certain type of thinking that puts people into these boxes. Now, this is by Robert Kiyosaki, and I met Robert many, many years ago. We were looking to do a deal together. I actually owned an e-learning company at the time, and when he was looking to build his cash flow game, he and I were connected through Laurel Langemeyer at the time. So we sat down, we connected. I went through his office, and it was interesting because his office is in Phoenix, and this is probably 10, 15 years ago. And, you know, his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then his other one, Cash Flow Quadrant, I just loved his book. And I'm walking through Robert's office with Robert. We get inside, and his president and Sharon Lecter, who was also in there at the time, literally stopped what they were doing. They quit. They were shocked to see Robert in the office. And they kind of scrambled. They go, Robert, what are you doing here? And he goes, oh, I just wanted to, bring Jim by the office here and da-da-da. And they're like, oh, okay, is there anything we can do? No, we're fine. And as we walked down the hallway, I asked Robert a question. I go, Robert, why is it that they were shocked or taken back that you're even in the office? And he said, because, Jim, I'm a business owner. He goes, I don't have to be in this place for this place to run. It's a business. It doesn't require me. And then he kept walking and talking. He goes, wait a minute, hold on. He said, Jim, do you still have a need to be needed in your business? Is your business built around you? Because if it is, you don't have a business. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, wow, he's right. If I have to be in my business, I don't have a true business. So I wanted to share that story because what Robert was demonstrating was his cash flow quadrant. And this cash flow quadrant, many of you have probably seen this, so I'll go over this quickly, but in the top left, it says employee. Now, as an employee, you have a job, which is great, right? So you're providing a service in exchange for units of energy. And as long as you're taking those units of energy and you're reallocating those units of energy, you can create an incredible lifestyle and have freedom, especially if you're doing something that you love. But the reality is, as an employee, you have a job. You're taxed differently than if you're a business owner or an investor. So the next quadrant he talks about is self-employed. And in self-employed, you own a job. Now, what is he talking about? What he's talking about is he's talking about people like I was at the time where I was a coach and I would trade my time for coaching other people, right? Maybe you are an attorney where you have a small practice, or a doctor or a lawyer, a lawyer attorney, and you're trading your time for money. You're an S Corp. You are self-employed. Now, Robert's belief on this is that these are some of the hardest working people who end up creating the least amount of wealth. So when you look at him, and he's pretty hardcore on this line, I'm not here to influence you either way, I'm just here to share a model, but he says that if you're on the left side of the quadrant, if you're an employee or self-employed, it's harder for you to create wealth because the taxes are actually structured to go against you. I'm not going to dive into detail about that. You may want to do some research. His books are fantastic. But his mindset is that you want to be on the right side of the quadrant. You want to be a B or an I. A B is a business owner. And see, a business owner creates a system that works for you. A business owner creates a system that hires employees or hires self-employed people. All right. Now, again, you can create wealth in any or all of these quadrants. It's just important to understand, depending on which quadrant you're in, what is your strategy for creating wealth, because it's different in each of these four quadrants. All right. Now, the final box is I for investor, and that means that your money's working for you. As an investor, you're deploying those units of energy to hire other businesses or other people or other assets to spin off cash flow or to grow your assets so that you can cash out on that and then reallocate that money. So this is one of my favorite ones. It's by Robert Kiyosaki. It's Cash Flow Quadrant, and it's there to help you understand which of these four you do. Now, I'm going to do, I think, one more, and then I will take a moment and answer any questions. But talking about the business owner quadrant, let's go to model number 16. And this is something that I designed to help entrepreneurs understand all the moving parts if you decide you're going to be a business owner. So every company that I've started, I look at it and I ask myself, what's the product or service that we're going to market? And by the way, what's missing in this, and I've added it to it, I just couldn't find the latest slide, is in between product and service is one more circle. And if you want to draw this out, I'd highly recommend it. But in between that is called your vision and mission. In other words, when you build these products and services, what's the impact you're looking to have in the world? So I recently partnered with my good friend Jonathan Budd and Elon Musk and Solar City, and our mission and our vision is to panel the planet. We want to put solar panels on every home across the world and get us off of dirty energy and onto clean energy. So we have a clear vision and mission. Our product is solar panels. Our services are helping people with the financing and the installation and the maintenance and building a business of being in the solar business. So we've got a bunch of people who want to be in business with us, and they become reps of solar. So that's our products and services. But around that, every business has to have marketing and sales, customer support, HR, legal, finance, operations, and technology. So if you look at it as a wheel, you can rate each area of your business on a scale of 0 to 10 and say, how good is our marketing? How good are we at identifying our perfect client profile? How good are we at understanding their psychographics and demographics? How good are we at communicating in a channel or medium, whether it's direct mail or Facebook or using webinars or whatever, at communicating and connecting with that person to influence them, to show them why you have a product or service that's valuable? Then it moves into the sales category. Then you have to support them. Then you've got to support all your staff with HR. You've got to legally make sure that you're not only protected, but that everybody has clear agreements, right? You've got to have finances, which give you the reporting to understand how to grow your company. You've got to have operations that make sure that all the technology and all the moving parts are happening the way that they should with all the systems that are there. So this is the core of a business. And a lot of people don't have a model that helps them go, where's my business on track and where's my business weak? Where am I strong? Where am I weak? So we go around and we ask everybody in our company, including our clients, to rate our marketing on a scale of 1 to 10, rate our sales on a scale of 1 to 10, our customer support 1 to 10, our HR 1 to 10, every area. And we constantly strive to get better. Okay? So that is the first few models. I'm going to take a pause. I got to check the time here too and just make sure we're okay. And now's a good chance for any questions before we go into the next couple of models. And give me a heads up of any questions that are coming up would be fantastic. Or any feedback. If you're like, hey, this is awesome, or wow, you've lost me already, let me know. Because as I mentioned before, this is the first time I've taught all these models at once. And I wanted to give you a dive, or an overview on each of the models. Okay? And I am going to accelerate. So let's see. So we got one here that says, self-employed. How do I move to a business owner and the system if the company depends on your designs or writing style, i.e. your personal talent? So great question. So that was exactly the question that I asked myself when I was a coach and I was doing very high-end private coaching, and I was going, all right, well, I'm charging now $5,000 a day, and now I'm charging $10,000 a day, now I'm charging $25,000 a day, now I'm charging $25,000 an hour to work with entrepreneurs and also to do keynotes and things like that. But I just kept charging more for my time. And then I stepped back and I said, how could I turn this into a business? So I created a curriculum. I created a training program for our coaches. I hired a staff to market and sell those products and services. And now we have a system that people go through, and I have coaches that love coaching people on those programs. They don't have to worry about marketing. They don't have to worry about sales. They don't worry about technology or HR or anything. So what you do is you ask yourself, if I'm that good at what I do, is it possible with 7 billion people on this planet that there might be 5, 10, 20, 50, 100, 1,000 other people that are also that good, but they don't want to do the marketing and the sales and the finance of the HR? Vice versa. If you're that good personally at graphics or design or writing or whatever it is that you do, is it possible you could have somebody else come in who doesn't maybe have a systems mind, and they could build the systems around your talents to extract your style and your format, train other people on it, and build a sellable asset. The goal is to go back to the 4 freedoms and ask yourself, if something happened to me where I was no longer allowed to work in my business, how would I grow that business? And that's the kind of thinking you need to have before you have a health issue or a financial issue or something like that. You know, if a train hit you today and your family was left without you, how would your business continue to grow without your presence? Okay. Or if, you know, something happened to you, and again, this is worst case scenario, something happens to you where you were either killed or permanently injured, how would your business grow without you? All right. So this is the kind of thinking that we do to minimize risk and to force ourselves to look at models that we can actually become free. Okay. Good. And somebody's saying, hey, I'm loving this. This is amazing. This is awesome. Great pace. So useful. Awesome. I can't wait to hear some of your questions in a few minutes. All right, let's keep diving into the next piece. And this is a model that a friend of mine, Roger Hamilton, I met at the Transformational Leadership Council with Jack Canfield and Ashraf and John Gray and all the top thinkers in the world. We get together twice a year, and we share our best ideas and concepts about transforming life. And this was from a young guy by the name of Roger Hamilton. And if you look over on the left, you'll see that there's 8 different types of profiles. Now, this is an actual assessment that Roger gives, and he's got a book on it and that kind of stuff. We use this for our high-end clients to help them understand what is their wealth pathway. Because what Roger explained to me, and I found some truth in this, is that if you are playing to your wealth pathway or your wealth profile, you are more likely to be more successful. So let me give you the example. In the top left-hand corner, they talk about the mechanic. The mechanic is someone like Mark Zuckerberg or Ray Kroc, right, of McDonald's. What they did, Ray Kroc didn't invent the hamburger, right? Zuckerberg didn't even invent social media. What they built was they built a scalable system. And that is the idea of a mechanic. They want to build a machine that can be replicated over and over again and grow to scale. So that's a mechanic thinking. The next one is a creator. I happen to be a creator profile. Richard Branson is a creator profile. Steve Jobs was a creator profile. So creators either come up with ideas or they innovate pre-existing ideas, right? So the way that we create wealth is through our ideas, and we then monetize those ideas. Oftentimes it's in building a brand or something like that. The next one is a star. Oprah Winfrey, Tony Robbins, those are both stars. And so what they do is they magnify other people's ideas. If you look at Oprah Winfrey, Oprah brought a bunch of celebrities and great thought leaders on her stage, which was the TV. Actually, it started as radio, became the TV. And what she did was magnify their gifts and talents, okay? They put on a show. Tony Robbins does the same thing. Tony Robbins puts on an amazing show with some amazing content that he's gathered from all across the world, all right? So when you look at the star, the way the star does it is they either magnify other people's brands, or they themselves are the brand. So Tiger Woods is an example of a star. He's an incredible talent with golf. But you know what? He is actually a star. His brand, the Tiger Woods brand, was worth more than the prize money he got from golf because of his sponsorships. So stars are people who magnify things. Now, what you'll find too is that your creators and your stars and your mechanics, they can have some crossover. So in my profile, it says you're a creator primarily, but you also have mechanic and star. So I can get up on stage and inspire and motivate and do all that kind of stuff. But I can also sit down and system think through my businesses of how to design models and these things. But at my best, I'm a creator. I can create companies. I can create brands. I can create content in my sleep. And the idea here is when you know your primary, you should spend less and less time in your secondary and tertiary profile. Now, the next one is, to the right, is a supporter. And a supporter is always asking, who can I get to do this? So Mayor Giuliani is a great example. You know, when the Twin Towers crashed, there were some people who were running around trying to get in front of the camera. Those were the stars, right? They were wanting to get in front of the media, and they wanted to have the microphone. Not Giuliani. Giuliani was in the background. You know who he was talking to? He was talking to the fire chief and the police chief and saying, who do we need to get in what position to make sure that we minimize this damage? Okay? So your supporters make great CEOs. They're always asking who, and they're really good at identifying who people are and helping put them in the right position. The next one is deal maker, and this particular deal maker happens to be running for president here in the United States. His name is Donald Trump. His book is called The Art of the Deal, and what they do is they love to structure deals. Everything's about the deal to them. So yes, they look at who I can do my deals with. And they're also very similar to the next profile, which is a trader, right? So like a George Soros would be a trader. He trades the stocks up and down. Trump is a deal maker. Now, what's interesting is when you're in the top of this wealth profile, mechanic, creator, star, it's all about creation, okay? It doesn't have a lot to do with timing or even truth. In other words, a lot of it's made up. A lot of your actors and a lot of designers and things are up in this upper area. It's all fantasy. It's all creation. And there's value in that. When you get down to the bottom half, these people have a sense of timing and tempo. A lot of times creators and stars and mechanics are good at creating wealth, but not as good at timing the markets and investing. So they'll create money, but then they try to invest it themselves thinking they're really good. They shouldn't be. They should be handing their wealth to deal makers, traders, accumulators, and these kind of things, because they actually have a sense of timing and they understand how to enter and exit markets. Okay? So a trader is somebody who trades stocks up and down and they make their profits on that, or they trade businesses, those kind of things. They buy and sell, buy and sell. Now, an accumulator, which is the bottom left here, accumulator is somebody like Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett realized when he did his first acquisition and then he sold it, he made a profit, a nice profit. But that company went on to become even more valuable, and he realized he was not a trader, he was an accumulator. He was a buy and hold kind of guy, which is different than a trader. A trader wants to get in, get out, get in, get out. They make their money on the ins and outs. An accumulator makes it on accumulating and managing a lot of those things. The last one is called a lord. And a lord, just like it sounds, a lord is kind of like that king. A king is somebody who wants to control other people's assets. So the lord is looking through intellectual property or through licensing or through control of somebody else's assets to create their wealth. Okay? So I share this with you because this model is one that I've used to help people understand their pathway to wealth, and I've found that it can create some clarity for people who just don't know where they should be focusing to create wealth. All right, now, there are 5 levels of wealth. This is another one that I've designed, created, if you will, and this is to give you an idea of where you are in your pursuit of creating wealth. At the very bottom, level 1 is called the injured player. And the injured player is somebody who's in what I call repair and recovery. Now, some of you may know this. I recorded 5 videos for John and the NeuroGym community not too long ago. Teach people who are in repair and recovery or who have debt how to become 100% debt-free. And I'm not just talking about credit card and student loan debt. I'm talking about actually getting out of your house, your car, everything, so you have 0 debt, right? And I also included a workbook and software all for free. Because if you're in repair and recovery, you need help, right? You may or may not feel like you can afford to invest in financial literacy and growth, but you need it. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do this as my gift back to the world. I'm going to create this course and give it away for free. If you're in an injured player, if you're struggling financially, if you're carrying debt, if you are up at night and you don't have inner freedom because of that, make sure you find that course. I believe we titled it 100% Debt-Free, something like that, or Repair and Recovery. But that's the injured player. They're struggling and they're kind of sitting on the sidelines. They're out of the game. The next level, level 2 of wealth, is to get back in training. So you are developing your mind and your skills to start creating wealth, and you're out there on the field starting to train and get back in shape so that you can get to level 3, which is actually playing the game. When you're playing the game, you're creating cash, you're managing it, and you're investing it. And if you do that well enough, you can get to level 4, which is you become a top recruit. You actually have people who are seeking you out and saying, hey, you've done well. Can we partner or can we work together in some way, shape, or form? You're in that attraction stage. And when you're at level 5, you're in the Hall of Fame. You're in the top 1/2 or 1% of people who truly understand the inner and outer game of wealth. All right? This is where you and all of the success you've had brings more and more value to the world. All right? Now, those are the 5 levels of wealth. You'll probably bounce up and down on some of those, but all of these require a certain thinking and certain skill sets, which, of course, we don't have the time to go into today. But that's a lifelong journey for people, is how to get to the top and master the game of wealth. All right? So let's do number 13, and this will be a quick one. This one's called the responsibility game. This is a model that I teach to every entrepreneur and every human I run into. Because if you are playing the responsibility game, you can create wealth. you can create health and you can create happiness. Now, there's supposed to be a red line in between the responsibility game and blame, shame, and justify. So let me just mentally draw a red line for you there. But what I found is that when people are playing the responsibility game, they're taking responsibility for the results, financially, in their health, and in their relationships. If they're not, they're blaming, shaming, and justifying. They're blaming other people in the world for why they are where they are. They're shaming themselves for being where they are in their life, or they're justifying or rationing lies. They're rationalizing why they are where they are. And guess what? That doesn't ever get you anywhere else. So one of the core principles about being successful in life is to play the responsibility game. Now you notice there's a little jar on the right-hand side. I do this in live events, and I have people every time that in the room, we ask them questions and they say, well, the reason I haven't created the wealth that I want is because, my husband doesn't support my business. Or the reason I haven't created the wealth that I want is because the financial economies took a downturn and I just have never been able to recover. That's not going to win the game. And even if those things happen, you're not going to win the game that way. So what we do is we train people subconsciously to take responsibility. In other words, have the ability to respond. And every time, and you might want to do this, just put a jar in your kitchen. And every time that you find yourself thinking or blaming, shaming, or justifying, go put $2 in that jar. Watch how fast that jar fills up. And you'll recognize that you may or may not have trained yourself to blame, shame, and justify. When we do this in the live events, we end up with hundreds to thousands of dollars, depending on how many people in the room, over the course of a weekend. And we always donate it to charity, right? But what we're doing is we're training people to quit blaming, shame, and justify and become responsible for the results that you produce in your life. Last story on this is I had a client by the name of Lori who came to the event. She did at the event. She probably put 50 or 100 bucks in the jar by the time the event was done. But she decided to go home and do this with her son. Her son was 9 years old at the time. And she taught him the rules to the game. She said, son, anytime that you find me blaming, shaming, or justifying, you tell me and I've got to put money in that jar. Well, as a kid, he loved playing that game. And I get a call from her and she calls me and she goes, Jim Bunch, I hate you. I'm like, what's going on, Lori? And she goes, I've been playing that stupid responsibility game with my son. And guess what? I have filled up that jar. Not once. I have filled up that jar twice. And I started laughing. And she goes, I'm just kidding. I don't hate you. She goes, but I just realized something. I have been training my son to blame, shame, and justify. And putting this jar in our kitchen has helped both of us realize that I can no longer program him to fail because that's what I've been doing. So think about this simple little game, but when you're playing above the line, when you take responsibility for the results that you produce, for the thoughts that you have, and the feelings and the energy you generate in the world, you will truly win the game of life. Number 12, the physical conditioning wheel. So how do we make sure that we're taking care of our health? This is a wheel that I put together many years ago because so many people are like, well, how do I train and condition my body so I have the energy to succeed at the highest level? Well, balance, strength, endurance, speed, power, and flexibility. So I bring this up as a model because if you're doing exercises where you're lifting weights, you're doing your 1980s workout where you're just, lifting weights and lifting weights and lifting weights, or you're doing the same thing you've been doing for the last 10, 20, 30 years, causing repetitive stress injuries, are you truly training yourself to play at the highest level of the game? If you are, then you incorporate exercises and lifestyle changes to increase your balance, strength, endurance, speed, power, and flexibility, because that will give you an ultimate body with ultimate energy, great mental clarity, and focus. So the last piece on this is I asked one of my friends who's a nurse, what is the number one problem you see that old people come into the hospital with? What's the one thing that just tears them apart? And she said, bar none, it's balance. They do not train themselves to have balance. So they come in here and they've fallen and they've gotten hurt. And so what I said is, you know what? All of my exercise now, I'm doing a Bosu ball that's upside down on one leg. And no matter what weights or whatever I'm doing, I'm literally on one leg or I'm standing on a ball in the middle of the gym. And people are looking at me, but I'm training myself to be balanced internally and physically every single day. All right. Now, number 11, the beliefs and results cycle. We all know that your results you're producing in your life are based on your beliefs, but let's talk a little bit about how this does. And I'm gonna full screen this. I don't know if it'll go on your side, but hopefully it did. So your beliefs drive your perception. So you have these subconscious beliefs in your life, right? they're driving the way that you see the world. So if you believe everybody is positive and happy and successful, that's the filter through which you're going to see everything. So that'll create your perception. The perception that you have about those people is going to create your feelings. The way you feel is going to motivate you or move you into a certain direction, either towards or away from those people. And that'll force you to take certain actions or non-actions, which gives you the results. So if you have a belief that you can be financially free, time freedom, location freedom, and inner freedom, guess what? You will start to perceive how the world is lining up for that. You'll have feelings that draw you towards becoming free. You'll be motivated. In other words, you'll be moving yourself towards taking the actions to build a life and business that's going to help you become free, and therefore you will get that result. It works every single time. So I keep this as a reminder for myself that if I'm not getting the results that I want, I can backtrack and say, well, am I taking the actions that are necessary? Do I have the motivation and the feelings and the perceptions and the beliefs that I need to create the results that I want? Because this circle works both ways, forwards and backwards. Number 10, take you deeper into your beliefs, right? This is something that was actually taught to me by a friend of both John and mine by the name of Bob Proctor. And Bob Proctor shared this from, or learned this from a gentleman who was a chiropractor down in Dallas, Texas. And if you look at this, you'll see that it looks like a stick man, right? It's got a head and it's got a body and it's got two arms and it's got two legs. Well, the head is made up of two parts. It's made up of the conscious and the subconscious. The subconscious is where all of our beliefs lie. Now, most of your beliefs you've gotten from the age of 0 to 10. Your beliefs about your body, your beliefs about your capability, your belief about money, your belief about relationships, your belief about sex or spirituality or anything is based on these programs, these softwares that were given to you by your environments. In other words, from the age of 0 to 10, every belief that you have was based on the world outside you. Your father, your mother, the church, the state, TV, radio, media, internet nowadays, all of that is bombarding your beliefs. And ask yourself this question. Are those beliefs inspiring you to become happier, healthier, and wealthier? Or are most of those pieces of information driving you to be unhappy, sick, and broke? You see, a lot of people don't realize that all this information is programming you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when you tap into calls and webinars like this, where we're giving you positive information, you are literally programming your mind to become happier, healthier, and wealthier. But if you tap into the general public and you see all the negative stuff out there, but don't focus on the solutions, it's going to be harder and harder for you to create success, because all of the conscious and subconscious beliefs that you have, which are operating in the very depths of your mind, if you will, are creating your habits that drive your actions that give you the results. This is another way to visually look at the beliefs result cycle. So your subconscious beliefs form your habits, which determine your actions, which of course give you your results. So if you don't like the results you've got in your physical body, if you don't like the results you have financially, if you don't like the results you have in your relationships, it's because the actions, habits, and beliefs are steering you in the wrong direction. So this is a model that I enjoy because it helps me look closer at how this beliefs to results cycle works. All right, so I'm going to pause for a minute before we drop down into our top 10 models that I love. Any comments or questions so far? And I know we've been on for about an hour now, so congratulations. I'll do my best to wrap these next ones up in 15 minutes. That'll leave us about 15 minutes for questions. And I have to take a breath because oxygen is like, well, oxygen to the body. All right, so any other comments or questions that are coming in, Christina will type those in. If you are weak in several areas, how do you decide where to start? That's a great question. I will come back to that in number 1, but I'll give you the short answer now, is I would choose the one that is the fastest and easiest. And here's the reason why. Once you start improving your life in one environment or one area, it gives you energy to do the next one and the next one. I do not encourage people to start with the hardest ones first, especially if you've got multiple ones. Now, if you only have one left that's not working, then do that. But if you've got multiple areas of your life that need improvement, start with the easiest one and give yourself immediate wins. Give yourself that boost, and then immediately go into the next one. Don't have one win and stop. You want to press your advantage. You want to keep going, okay? So hopefully that helps, and we'll keep rocking. All right. Is it possible to be debt-free and have an excellent credit score? Absolutely. Is credit even necessary if you're financially wealthy? Credit is necessary if you want to leverage other people's money to build more wealth. So that's what the reason is credit. Now, I know people who have really poor credits because they've tried to do things and they leverage other people's credit. So maybe they have cash, but they don't have credit. I know people who don't have cash and don't have credit, and they bring people who have cash and credit in, and they become the middle person, and they do deals. So there's a million ways to structure these things, especially when you start looking at these models. Okay? So the answer is, yeah, you can be debt-free and have an excellent credit score. And if you think it can't, then I'm going to encourage you to go back and look at this. Do you have some subconscious beliefs right here that are driving your perceptions of whether it is or isn't possible? Is that controlling your feelings like, ooh, I don't feel good, like, I don't know if I can create wealth? And is it keeping you from taking the actions you need? That's how those kind of things play out. All right? Cool. How do you stay focused on your business when your personal life is in chaos? It's very difficult. To be honest with you, it's very, very difficult to do that, which is why I'm such a big proponent of people having life balance and business balance. Because to me, I don't separate the two. My life and my business is one thing. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? So my life and my business are the same. I do not separate them. I put them in models like this so you can see the difference. But I've got one life. Whether I choose to be in a business or not, well, that's just an extension of my life. But the question about how do you stay focused on your business is you set up your business so it's not dependent on you, and you handle your personal things immediately. You make sure that you are investing energy into your relationships or into your home or whatever it is that's taking you off track. I'll tell you this about relationships. And I don't teach a lot on relationships, but it happens to be an area of my life that I'm really good at. And I'm good at it because I invest energy in it. I asked John Asseroff, I said, John, you and I have been friends for 20 years. We've built multiple businesses together. You introduced me to my wife. I was with you when you met Maria, your wife. We've seen our kids grow up together. We were in the hospitals when our kids were born, right? I said, why is it out of all the people that you and I know, you and I for 20 years have stayed friends? And he stopped for a minute and he goes, because you invest energy in our relationship. And he's right. He goes, a lot of people come in and they take energy, they don't invest. So just something for you to look at. Whatever you're wanting to improve in your life, you have to invest energy in it. Whether it's handling debt, whether it's handling a relationship, whether it's handling clutter and chaos in your environment, you have to invest in it. Okay? Please speak to habits, actions, etc., and how they relate to subconscious success. Well, I think I did do that. And basically, all of your actions and results are based on your habits and subconscious programming. So if you're not consistently taking the actions or habits that you want, let's say you're not working out consistently, or you're not eating healthy food, or you're not getting enough sleep, you can backtrack and go, there must be a belief that I have that is programming me improperly. One of the reasons that I purchased John's brain software for all of my clients, because we track their financials. We're one of the only people who tracks people's financials. I use his software because I know that it works. I know if I can reprogram their thinking, redesign their environments, I can get them financially free and get them in the best shape of their life. So it all goes back to reprogramming the subconscious. All right, let me turn the corner here because I do want to be able to answer a ton of these questions and just speak openly about all of these models. But let me get you down to the bottom 9, or my top 9 actually. So number 9, have you ever run into a situation where you just, for whatever reason, you had a lot of opportunity or no opportunities and you could not make a decision? You just couldn't decide what to do. Maybe it was that job to take or that relationship or that trip or whatever. So a friend of mine, Randy Zales, shared this with me. He said that he uses these 4 decision-making criteria for evaluating opportunities. Number 1, when I make this decision, what will it do to my lifestyle? Because at the end of the day, if you're not investing your life where you want, you've wasted your life. You do realize that every single time that you come to a webinar, or every time that you meet with a client, or every time you go to your kid's baseball game, you are trading your life for that moment. You'll never get that time back. That's why I'm so grateful for the time we get to invest together, because I hope that this is making a difference in your life. I hope that you will take this information, use it in your life, and teach it to other people. That's all I'm doing. I'm still building other companies, right? But I'm sharing this information because I want you to improve your life, because if you improve your life, you'll help another person do it, and it makes the world a better place. So number 1, what does it do to your lifestyle? Number 2, what's the return on investment? What's the return on investment of my time or my capital? So the second thing is, when I put energy in, whether it's an energy unit of a dollar bill or an energy unit of my time, which, by the way, which is more valuable? My time is the most valuable asset. I never get more of that. I can make tons more money, right? So can you. But you never get your time back in this physical body. You may recycle with the same soul and a new body, but you're not going to get more time in this physical body. You are as young today as you will ever be, right? So the next one is value and impact. And this is really important. Yeah, it may improve my lifestyle. It may give me a great return on investment. But if it doesn't create value and align with my values, plus impact the world, it's simply not on my radar. There are plenty of products and services out there, and people make a living with them. But the way I look at it is we've got some big things on the planet we need to take care of. Climate change is a massive problem. 190 nations got together and said that we are screwed if we don't stop putting CO2 in the atmosphere. It is changing everything. It's wiping out species. Do you realize that 50% of the species on the planet are going to be extinct by 2050? Half of the species on this planet, because we've destroyed the air and the water. So what are you working on today? What are you learning that's going to help you make an impact in something that's important to you? Maybe it's eradicating cancer. Maybe it's climate change. Whatever it is, make sure that it's one of the top 10 problems we have as a species, and you're working to help that. All right? And number 4, when I make this decision, how does it align with my personal goals? Right? So if I take on a job or a project, but my health is going to suffer, that doesn't work for me. If I take on a job or a project and it's going to tear my relationships apart, that doesn't work for me. So these are the 4 decision-making criteria that I use. What does it do to my lifestyle? What's the ROI? What's the value or impact to my life and to the world? And how does it align with my goals? So I hope that helps some of you make your decisions a little bit clearer. The next one is the 4 levels of the game of life. Now, I noticed these 4 levels, and I've taught this to a lot of audiences around the world. Jack Canfield asked me to teach this to all of his people because he just realized, wow, this is a great model for where people are in their life, and they go up and down. But what I found is most people want 3 things in life. They want to be happy, they want to be healthy, and they want to be wealthy, right? That's across the top. So if you've got that, I call that your trilogy score. You're happy, you're healthy, and you're wealthy, all right? Now, there's 4 levels to happiness, health, and wealth. At the very bottom, you're in repair and recovery. And we talked about that. If you're in repair and recovery, you're in survival mode. You need to get in gear and handle the problems, right? So if you've got debt or you've got an illness or your relationships are a mess, you've got to get into gear. Now, this is the stage that requires work, and you want to get out of level 1 as quickly as you can. You're in the red zone, okay? Now what you're going to do is you're going to start taking the right actions and reprogramming your beliefs to get to level 2, which is foundation, where you have stability, you have security. You're building a foundation just like you would be building a foundation of an actual house or a building, right? What do they do first? In a house, they clear a little bit of land, they pour this concrete, and then they build on top of that, right? If you don't have a solid foundation, that house isn't going to stay there when the first big wind comes along. If you're building a skyscraper, if you don't want to just build a house, but you want to build a skyscraper, what's the first thing you do? You don't just clear the land. You have to dig really deep, and you've got to put support underneath the ground so that most of the building is under the ground. And then if the big wind comes along, yeah, it may sway at the top, but it's not going to fall over, okay? So you have to build foundation. And this is not the fun, cool, or sexy part. This is work. And most people want to skip this part and go to the next level. But I'm telling you this, when it comes to your happiness, your health, and your wealth, if you're willing to invest the energy to do a couple of things every day, just 3 things a day, you will actually create a foundation that will last you a lifetime, right? Because it's not about what you do one day that makes a difference. It's what you do 20 days, 40 days, 100 days, 1,000 days that determines your financial stability, your health longevity, and your happiness overall. That's the level 2 is foundation. Level 3 is reserves. Once you have a foundation in place, you can start building reserves. And reserves means you have an abundance.
Yeah.
You have more than enough time, money, energy, love, and joy, right? You have reserves. Your gas tank runneth over, right? If you're in repair and recovery, you're on fumes. If you're in the foundation stage, it's kind of that up and down a little bit. If you're in the reserves, you're starting to build a little bit of momentum and a little resources. When you get to level 4, you're at mastery. And you've probably heard this before, that mastery takes 10,000 hours of focused execution to create mastery. So think about this. What if you were to master happiness? Would that be an amazing return on your investment? I think it would. What if you were to master your health? Health is not that hard, right? Health is simple. What do I have to do? I have to make sure that whatever I put in my body adds fuel to me. I have to make sure that I repair my body by sleep and regeneration, right? And I have to make sure that I move my body because it requires movement. So when it comes to nutrition, exercise, and sleep, those are the three things. It's not hard. And can you master that? Yes, you can master that. And what about wealth? Can you master the 4 pathways? I think you can. You can master the 4 pathways. You can master the 3 C's of money: cash flow creation, cash flow management, cash flow investing. You just have to invest the time and energy and make the decision to do it. So what I've seen is I've seen people operating at different levels of the game, and my goal is to help everybody master the game of life, right? Master your happiness, your health, and your wealth, because then you truly are a high-performing human, okay? Next one, happiness is a business model. Now, this is one I just found. I don't know a ton about this. I haven't tested this one. Every one that I mentioned before are ones that I've tested. But I saw this model and I went, that's going to make it into my top 10 models. So, number 1, having a purposeful company. Having something that's truly making a difference in the lives of people and improving the planet, right? Number 2, an engaged team. If you have a team that's engaged, you get stuff done, right? You innovate, you actionize things, right? If you have a disengaged team, it doesn't matter what your purpose is. If they're not engaged, you can't win. And number 3, delighted customers. If you have people who are happy with the products and services, they're going to tell other people. They're going to continue to exchange their units of energy, i.e. dollar bills, for your product or service, right? So you can keep giving those units of energy to your employees so that they can invest and get financially free. That, my friends, is a purposeful company. Now, what's interesting is between purposeful company and engaged team is leadership, right? So when you start developing leadership, you understand who people are. Leadership, by the way, is not just about telling people what to do. Leadership is about being that example and helping other people overcome whatever they need to take their game to the next level. All right. In between engaged team and delighted customers is relationships. How do you relate to each other? How does your company and your team relate to the demands and desires of those customers? Because if they can deliver the products and services that make those customers delighted, you have a relationship, not a transaction, not a transactional relationship, but an actual relationship where customers are with you for 5, 10, 20, 30 years. I have customers that are still with me when I first opened up the Ultimate Game of Life. I have a new company. We're a partner with Elon Musk. We're building relationships with people that we're going to be with. Our compensation goes for 20 years we pay them, guaranteed. So I'm going to be in relationship with people for at least 2+ decades, right? Now, between purposeful company and delighted customers is loyalty. You build the bridge of loyalty based on consistent, successful events. The more successful events, the more contribution somebody makes to your life, the more loyal you are because they keep adding value. Remember when John said to me, the reason that we're friends after 20 years is because you make an investment? Listen, I'm never going to run out of energy until my body and my soul separate and I go back to wherever I came from. So in the meantime, I'm going to keep generating energy and giving because that's what fuels me and that's how I create value in the world. All right. So what if happiness was your business model and it looks something like this? Number 6, what about a model for functional happiness? What about for yourself? Here's another one that I just recently found. I thought this is really, really intelligent. All right. Now, what they say is that there's 2 things to understand about happiness. On the left side is self-generated inspiration. And self-generated inspiration, by the way, inspiration is the spirit within. It means your soul's alive, right? Self-generated inspiration comes from 3 things: your dreams or goals, you developing yourself, in other words, working and improving yourself, and your life passions, things you're passionate about, things you truly enjoy, not because somebody else thinks you should do it or not because you think you have to do that to make money or whatever, but your goals, your passions, and your development of yourself all aligned together creates an internal self-generated inspiration. Inspiration is spirit within. The spirit is nothing but energy. When your body dies, guess what? When your body dies, it immediately begins to decay. All the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen turns back to dust. Well, what determines our life or death? It's the soul. It's the last breath. It's that energy or spirit. You know, my mom was at the bedside of my grandmother when she passed away in the hospital. She said, Jim, it was the most beautiful, amazing thing. The moment her soul left her body, the window opened up at the hospital, and I could feel her presence leave. Pretty powerful, right? Every one of you has a soul. And when your soul and your passion and your purpose is on alignment, you can feel it, right? What happens when somebody is depressed? Their soul is headed in the wrong direction. It's that simple. They have no energy, okay? Now, on the flip side, reduction of suffering. So they say, yeah, let's focus on the moving towards, let's focus on a self-generated, inspired life, but at the same time, let's get rid of the things that are blocking us. So to reduce your suffering, you want to have perceptive awareness. In other words, you want to be aware of what is and isn't working in your life. Some people are just clueless. So a lot of times, an outside help or source will help you shine a mirror on your own life. But another thing to reduce your suffering is to accept the truth. One of the most freeing things is to embrace where you really are versus where you think you should be. So just accept the truth and lean into it and go, man, the universe doesn't make mistakes, right? Never has, never will. So maybe this is exactly where I'm supposed to be so that I can learn how to get to the next level in my life. John and I both had something in common. We had both built a pretty sizable amount of wealth. As a matter of fact, we were pretty close to being free for what we thought forever, right? And then guess what? The universe had something else. Both of us realized the universe must have been calling us back to work. The universe wasn't done with us creating value in the world. So we realized that what makes us happiest, healthiest, and wealthiest is to be engaged in teaching and learning and growing businesses and helping lead. So we realized the universe called us back in, and we at that moment we went, hey, let's accept this truth and let's lean in and get engaged. The third piece is eliminating roadblocks, right? Don't build roadblocks just so you can break them down, but if they show up, make sure that you overcome them, go through them, go around them, whatever you need to, so that you can reduce your suffering. So if you can reduce your suffering and create self-generated inspiration, you're going to be a happier human. It's that simple. Now, this is one called the clear communication model. I know I'm accelerating here, so hang on, right? The clear communication model is one that I realize helps people break down arguments. Actually, that's not through. Break through arguments. Now, maybe you, being a male or a female, have had this happen before. But have you ever been in an argument with somebody and realized that that you were talking two different languages? Have you ever had that happen? Well, what I have found is that oftentimes people don't understand how to communicate from all four quadrants. And in order to have successful communication, you have to talk in all four of these quadrants. So let's start at the bottom. The bottom is facts. Now, the facts are what actually happened, and these are undisputable. So if you've got two people in life, let's just say a male and a female, let's say a husband and a wife, and they can both agree on the facts, all right? So the facts might be, yes, we had a conversation about our finances yesterday at 4 o'clock. That's the facts, all right? So the facts are we had a conversation. The facts are we reviewed our finances. Those are the facts. Now, the feelings are happy, sad, angry, or scared. So if we go with the primaries, happy, sad, angry, or scared, now we can go, all right, the facts are this. I was angry about our conversation. Okay, I was angry about our conversation. The facts were we talked about our financials. Right? See the model laying out? Now, on the other side is our job, our judgment, opinions, and beliefs. Now, here's what you might hear from somebody when you get into a conversation. You know what? I'm just tired of you judging me for what I do with, shopping, for example. Okay? So now, all of a sudden, I've gotten into the judgment, opinion, and belief. Now, when somebody enters into this category, that's where we get into trouble in communication. Because now you're not dealing with facts. You're not even dealing with feelings. You're dealing with your judgments, opinions, or beliefs. And everybody has them, but that's the slippery slope, and that's where people get into arguments. Now, the last one is called wants. Oftentimes, people will communicate in only one or two or three of the circles, and they'll leave one of them out. Now, the wants is what do we want in this situation, or what do I personally want? Now, let me draw a little parallel for you. How many times, ladies and guys, just play with this and see if this is true. I'm not saying it is. This is my opinion and my belief or observation, right? What I have found is that oftentimes men and women communicate differently. I shared this with John Gray when we were in a hot tub in Hawaii, and I said, John, have you ever seen this happen? Have you ever seen how men, when they get in an argument, what men will do is they will get angry. They will talk about the facts. They'll tell you their judgments, opinions, belief, and they'll tell you exactly what they want. Right? But they won't tell you what they're actually feeling. They'll say, well, I feel like you did this wrong, or I feel like you screwed me, or I feel like you whatever. So they won't actually tell you they're feeling angry, hurt, sad, or scared. Now, women, on the flip side, what do? Well, women will tell you their feelings. Jim, I'm angry, right? And I feel like, right? So she'll tell you, I feel angry, but then she'll tell you a judgment or opinion that sounds like a feeling. I feel like you don't respect me. Well, that's not a feeling. So now the man's thinking to himself, that's not a feeling. What are you actually feeling? He's trying to figure out what she's feeling, which is actually a judgment or opinion that you don't respect me, right? And by the way, when you did this, this, and this, she'll list off the facts. She'll give you the inventory. So now what happens is women have a tendency to stay in the facts, feelings, and opinions or judgments and beliefs, but they won't tell you what. They won't tell you what they want. So here's the guy trying to figure out what you want so I can fix it, right? Or what you're actually feeling because maybe you did or didn't tell me that. And here's the woman going, well, you're telling me the facts, you're giving me your judgments, opinions, you're telling me what you want, but I don't know what you feel. Can you see how it's possible that our communication can get mixed up? It happens all the time. And when I've seen this in relationships time and time again, when people start to learn to write down and communicate in all four of these, you remove the charge from negative conversations. All right? So that's model number 5. Again, that one's one I usually teach in a whole hour, but I'm giving you the shortcut here. The next one is values pyramid. And what I've discovered is in order to live a truly high-performance lifestyle, you have to understand all 3 of these. You have to understand your needs. Now, your needs are your core needs, right? And you've probably heard Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but we also have 200 personal needs. You might have a need for attention or respect or to be touched or food or shelter or sex. These are needs. And if you're not getting your personal needs met, you're going to feel angry, upset, overwhelmed, frustrated. All right? So when you start getting your needs met, you're going to feel a sense of relief. Now, at the next level, you want to get your wants. Your wants are your desires. You might want a new car, a new vacation. You might want a new outfit. You might want to have an experience like going to the Amazon rainforest or something like that. These are wants or desires. And the feeling when you get a want or desire met is a sense of gratification. Remember, needs are a sense of relief, like, whoo, I've got relief. A want, when you're working on your wants, is a sense of gratification, like, woohoo, I rung the bell. The challenge with the wants is they're temporary, right? Now, the next one is your values. Your values are the core things that drive your subconscious behaviors. And again, I don't have time to go into values. We actually have a process we teach people to discern their subconscious values. There's 5 of them that every human has. And believe it or not, they drive all your behavior. So when you can identify your core values, and most of the time I've seen these assessments, the assessments don't get it right, all right? Because they're trying to show you somebody else's words for something that's your subconscious programming. But your values are the things that drive your soul. Your values are the things you value most in life. They're the things you want to see in the world. They're the things you want to be involved in. And when you have your needs met, your wants taken care of, and you're on target with your values, you're living a truly ultimate life. So that's the values period number 4. So how do we do this? Well, we can start to align our values. Once we know them, we can align our goals and our decisions around our values. So we talk about living a values-driven life or doing life by design. This is the model that we look at. You see, your values define who you are. They define the purpose of why you're here, to express that value in the world. The next piece is your goal. Your goals are simply the things that get you closer to living those values every day and creating it out into the world, whether it's short-term or long-term. And the decisions, we've already talked about the 4 decision-making criteria. The decisions are the things that you do every day that move you closer to the goals and more alignment with your values. So for me, model number 3, living a values-based life, is critical for people to have a truly amazing life. Now, my number 2 model, and this is the one I usually start with, right, when I was first starting my models, is I start with what's called the 10-40-50 success model. And I'm going to give you the 10, the 40, and the 50 here in a second. The 10% are your skill set. So if you're going to be successful in life, there's certain skills, right? If you're going to create cash, if you're going to create wealth, if you're going to create health, there's skills, there's how to. And this is the information. This is the strategy and the tactics to do something. Now, the good news is you can read a book on just about every skill, on how to start a business or how to write a computer software program or how to buy real estate or how to whatever, right? There's books on the how to. But that's only about 10% of the equation. Because if I get a book on how to build a building, does that mean that because I read the book, I know how to do it? Well, I know the how, but I haven't actually done it. And here's the reason why. The next thing is the 40%. 40% is the mindset, okay? 40% of your success is going to be the mindset. That's the mental and emotional side. So if I've got the book on how to, but I can't mentally and emotionally get myself to do the things I need to do because my belief systems are off, guess what? I'm never going to succeed at the level that I need to, right? Now, the 50% of your success is this next one called environments. And there are 9 environments surrounding every single human. This model is my favorite model of all time. It's the one that I've gotten known around the world for teaching, because what I've found is that you can have the right skill set. You can even reprogram your mind. But if you don't change the environments, you can't change long term. Here's the reason why. Your environments, and there's 9 of them, are working on you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So ask yourself this question. When you've been listening to this webinar, are you enjoying this environment? Because right now, I'm an environment of you. I've been sharing information, which, by the way, is called memes, memetics. I've been sharing positive ideas and concepts and models that I've gathered over the last 20 plus years, and I've been sharing that. Now, you have a certain thought pattern going right now. Maybe you're inspired, maybe you're motivated, maybe you're feeling energetic. If you're watching me versus watching, say, the political race or watching some Jerry Springer TV show, right? Do you feel different? You should, because I'm a different environment than that, right? So the environment's working on you. It's making you feel and think a certain way. So the more positive, uplifting, inspiring environments you have, and the more you get rid of the ones that are draining you, the more happy, healthy, and wealthy your life is going to be. Now, these 9 environments are surrounding you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In the middle is the YOU. That's the part of you that's always been here. That's the soul. You have a human body, which is an environment. And the food that you put in and the physical surroundings you have around that determine your actual health. So I'm not going to go into the 9 environments now. And the reason is I've actually recorded content for the NeuroGym community, all on the 9 environments. This is a topic that I recorded, I believe, a full hour on. I highly recommend that you go watch that. You have access to it. Watch the 9 environments of you so that you can learn how to design environments to pull you into a better you, instead of having environments that drain you and drag you down, okay? So we did it. We did it right at the 90-minute mark. I want to take a couple of minutes now to answer a few questions. So I hope that you enjoyed these models. I'll flip back through them really quickly as some questions come up. And next time I teach this, I'm going to have to do it a little faster in the beginning so that I've got 15 minutes left for questions instead of 5. But let's go ahead and dive in here and answer some of these questions. I'll do as many as I can until Christina says, that's it, we've got to cut time, okay? Plus, I've got a baseball game to go to for my son. So let's go with the first question that came up is, how can we succeed when we are dealing with health challenges? Can one will themselves past physical pain? Well, that's an interesting question. I'll take the second one first. Can someone will themselves past physical pain? Yes. Okay. You can will yourself past physical pain for certain periods of time. Take a look at Navy SEALs, right? They endure massive amounts of pain because they want to accomplish something. They want to reach the level of a Navy SEAL, right? I know that I've had physical pain in certain situations, but what I wanted to accomplish was greater than the pain. And so I could temporarily shut that pain out. If you are having health challenges, what I encourage people to do is ask themselves, what environments do I need to have around me to get me into health? So, for example, today I went to my chiropractor. Why? Because I still play beach volleyball and I surf and I'm 46 years old. So I'm doing sports that 20-year-olds are doing. I'm jumping and diving and landing and, even my wrist, right? So I've got this band around my wrist because I separated the 2 bones in my arm this weekend from diving, right? But I've got a chiropractor as an environment. I've got massage therapists as an environment. My wife and I eat healthy organic foods as an environment. We're working on our health constantly. So I have environments in place that cause me to be healthier. All right. So Tamara's saying, good information, great information. I love it. Your excitement, your energy is motivating. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. I am super happy to support John and the community and everybody here. Let's see. Very good, Jim. Thank you very much. I could listen to you teach this all day long. That's great to hear. Thanks, Nancy. Question from Robin. Yes, I always feel energized and inspired by webinars like this one. I am currently stuck in an environment draining me I can't get away from. It's my child and behavior. Any suggestion? Yes, yes, yes. I highly recommend that you get experts. So I've got a friend who is actually a family and child psychologist, and he's a specialist in that area. I highly recommend you bring those environments in to help you learn how to create the right environment for your daughter or son. I'll share with you a little story. We actually ended up moving houses because the house that we were in before was this beautiful Italian Tuscan house. Some of you may have seen pictures on it. We used to throw parties where we would literally fly people in and pianos in, and we had 100 people just in our living room area. It was up on a hill overlooking the beach and the racetrack here in Del Mar. Gorgeous house, 6,500 square feet. We loved that house. But you know what? It wasn't the right environment for my son. My son was 2 years old at the time, and we put him in Montessori school, but he was starting to yell in school. And the principal calls us up. We go in for a meeting one day, and he says, "Why is your son yelling?" And we're like, "We have no idea. What are you doing to him in here?" Well, it wasn't until we got home later that we realized that my wife and I were yelling from one end of the house to the other. "Honey, it's time for dinner." "Okay, I'll be right there." Well, that's just what my son thought you did in that environment. So he thought we just always yelled. Well, it finally hit us when he comes whipping out of his bedroom on a tricycle, riding to the other side of the house to get to us. And we went, wait a second. Here's our son who, we were sleeping on the third floor. He was on the second floor. My offices, I had 3 offices, were on the very first floor. My son's on the second floor at the, basically in another wing. And we couldn't hear him if he was crying in the middle of the night. So here's a 2-year-old son who's yelling in the house, riding his tricycle, and screaming in the middle of the night because he can't find us. And we realized it was the wrong environment for him. So I encourage you to look at the environments around your child, whether it's at school or whether it's in, they're learning something from you, and redesign those environments and bring in environments to help you. Okay? Cool. Let's see. Maybe the last question here. What to do when you are stuck in bad relationships, such as family? Great question. I knew somebody was going to ask that. So let me talk a little bit about it, because somebody asked me before, where do you start improvement? Go watch the 9 environments lesson, and in there I talk about the environments you should work on first. Okay, and I explain each of these 9 environments. I explain the medics and body, self, spiritual, nature, physical, financial, network, all of those. The reason that I want you to go watch that video is I explain in there each of the environments, how to redesign them, and which ones to start with. You should definitely start with the body, self, spiritual, physical, financial, or network first. Relationships are the hardest ones for most people. And here's the reason why. You have 9 environments. Guess what? So does everybody else. So if you start changing your environments, you start changing your body, your finances, your physical, yourself, you get more spiritually connected, more in nature. You start changing your memetics, which is your beliefs, your ideas, your programming. Guess what? Your actual relationship will improve as a byproduct. You'll get more grounded, more centered, more clear on what you want. And they then have a choice to improve or not to improve. Okay? So I think relationships for most people is the last one that they start to improve. But if you start improving your physical environment, your body environment, your financial environment, and you're getting wins and energy there, it'll be easier for you to deal with whatever you have to in your relationships. And plus, the relationship model is where I teach more about like the communication model, which is, intangible. The challenge with relationships is you're dealing in the mental and emotional realm. It's intangible, and it's harder to see results than in some of the other environments. Okay? So I hope that helps a little bit. All right, this can be your last question. We are getting the best feedback about your live call. Yay! Sorry, I'm reading that. Christina was typing a message to me that says, this could be your last question. We're getting the best feedback about your live call. I hope that you love this. I hope that you encourage yourself and other people to join the community here. John and the team have put together, and Andy and Courtney and Christina and Scott and the rest of the NeuroGym team are all friends of mine. They've put together a great environment of learning for you. And I highly encourage you to embrace this, to study this. Listen to this over and over again. I promise you, you listen to this a second, third, fourth, fifth time, it'll sound different than it did the first time. I go back and I watch these things. I use MySpeed Video to watch webinars and videos super fast. You can download it at myspeedvideo.com, but you can listen to these things super fast, right? And you'll hear and reprogram yourself. So that's the first thing. Embed this over and over again. The second thing I'd encourage you to do is to invite your environments into this kind of conversation. If you find that your environments are not supporting you, in other words, they're not inspiring you, they're expiring you, they're draining your energy, you can introduce them to this environment, or you can weed them out. If you look at my environments are mostly positive, happy, healthy, wealthy people, right? Why? Because I understand that all of those environments are impacting me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I didn't grow up in a success type environment. I grew up in a small town with one stoplight and 13 bars called the Berry, Florida. It wasn't a success mecca. There weren't a lot of mentors around. I had very loving parents, but my parents were under a lot of stress. They didn't make a lot of money. Literally, we just didn't have. I didn't think we had a lot. In hindsight, I realized there's a lot of people who have a lot less. So I had a great foundation. I had a very loving family. And a lot of my desire to contribute to people is because I had that foundation. But I always wanted more. And I realized that in order for me to have more, I'd have to leave that environment called the Berry, Florida. I had to go to college. I had to travel the world. I met great mentors like Tony Robbins and Bob Proctor and John Assaraf, and I went to work with these guys. I built companies. I went to work for them for free in the beginning and spent a year on the road teaching and traveling their stuff because I knew that my mind had to change for my life to change. All right. So it's been my honor and my pleasure to serve. I hope you enjoyed this. Find me on Facebook and give me feedback about this. This is the first time I've ever taught this. I'm considering teaching it again to the world just to give this kind of content away. And if this was valuable, I'd love to know a couple things. I'd love to know which of the models made an impact for you. I know that's situational, but which model made an impact for you? And then one or two things that you got out of this webinar. You can find me on Facebook. Just Google Jim Bunch and find me on Facebook. But I'd love to hear your feedback, and anything I can do to support you, I'd be happy to do. Thank you to the team for setting this up. Have an absolutely incredible night. This is Jim Bunch, founder of the Ultimate Game of Life, saying until we connect again, have fun, and remember, it's your choice to create your ultimate life. Bye for now.